Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whenever it is that you're watching. Thank you for tuning in to this another episode of Life Lessons. Glad that you've joined me. As you can tell, I'm on the motorcycle again. I've decided I'm going to ride as much as I can ride till the weather just allows me not to ride anymore. But I'm glad that you're with me today, riding. It's kind of an overcast day when I'm taping this, but that's all right. We'll ride anyway. Kind of chilly without the sun shining. It is kind of chilly out here, but just wanted to get out again today and just bring you another podcast. Hopefully your Thanksgiving went well, and now we turn our attention to Christmas. We're just a week, maybe 2 weeks away. No, we have already come through. Sorry, we've already come through Christmas. See, that's how I get mixed up. We've already come through Christmas. Now we're setting our sights on the new year. And man, it's, I hope that 2024 went well for you. I hope that things weren't too awfully bad. It was kind of an interesting year, wasn't it? The election cycle that we went through, and all the upheaval going on. It was just an interesting kind of year, but we're looking forward now to a new year. And what are your expectations for the new year? I have some expectations. Some people, they make New Year's resolutions. I don't tend to do that, but I do want to set some goals, right? And one of the goals that I've set is, I'll talk about that in a minute. You hang on to that. I'll get to that in a minute. But I want to take two episodes, looking forward to the new year, and talk about how you and I can be successful in this new year. Now, we have to start out with, how do you define success, right? How do you define success? People define success in terms of the things that they have, the amount of things that they have. Some people define success as the amount of money, maybe their status, prestige, position, whatever it might be. But I want to talk about some other things that I think are more defining of what success could be for you in this new year coming up. All of us have the best of intentions when it comes to the new year, and we'll just see how that goes, right? We'll just see how that goes. But I want you to listen closely for these next two podcasts as to how to be successful in this new year. Now, as we normally do, I'm going to take passages of Scripture and we're going to apply them to principles that you and I can live by. So the first principle in this new year, if you want to be successful in this new year, number one is to seek the wisdom of God. Seek the wisdom of God. Proverbs chapter 9 verse 10 says, "The fear of the Lord," listen to this close now, "the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One is understanding." Now that means more than just head knowledge, right? He's talking about a knowledge, an intimate awareness of who God is and what He wants for you and I. Wisdom. How do you define wisdom? How do you define wisdom? I think wisdom is a combination of knowledge and experience. The writer of Proverbs says that and acknowledge the Holy One. To acknowledge the Holy One is understanding. So wisdom is the combination of knowledge and experience. The more you do something, whatever it is, pick something. The more you do something, usually the better you get at it, right? Okay? And the mistakes that you and I have made in the past year, in 2024, hopefully we can learn from those mistakes, right? We can learn from those. So seek wisdom, the wisdom of God. I've said before in other podcasts, and I want to say it again here. We're talking about a God who formed, fashioned, created, and sustained all of this stuff that exists, okay? He knows past, present, and future all in one. He's not limited by time nor space. So it stands to reason then that we should seek that kind of wisdom, right? Younger people, younger couples, they seek wisdom of people who've been married a long time. Younger people seek the wisdom of, either their parents or grandparents, and in some cases, great-grandparents. Okay, so number one then is seek the wisdom of God. That's primary. Everything else that I'm going to say in these next two podcasts emanate from that. Number two, and this is an important one, avoid foolish and ignorant disputes. Wow. We could have used that all of last year, right? Avoid foolish and ignorant disputes. 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 23, Paul is writing to Timothy, who's a young pastor, and he's saying, don't have anything to do with foolish or stupid arguments, because they produce quarrels. And all the people said, amen, right? You and I know that. It's just really, I think in a way, been sad to see over this last year the number of issues, the number of quarrels that have caused families to split, okay, to not have anything to do with other family members. If you voted for a certain person, I'm not going to have anything to do with you anymore. If you hold these certain beliefs, I'm not going to have anything to do with you anymore, okay? Avoid foolish and ignorant disputes. Some of the things, when you think about it, some people would rather be right and destroy relationships than be wrong and preserve the relationship. Now, I know that sounds really odd, really weird to say, but I think this last year in particular has proved that. Really the last 3, maybe 4 years have proved that. And when you stop and think about it, the arguments that we get into are really, in the grand scheme of things, they're just they're minor, right? They're just minor, particularly when it comes to splitting of relationships. If you voted a certain way, if you hold certain beliefs, then we're not going to have you for Thanksgiving. We're not going to have you for Christmas. I'm going to avoid my parents. I'm going to avoid my siblings. I'm going to avoid everybody that doesn't agree with my way of looking at things. Which is totally, when you look at it on its face, it's totally absurd, right? So he encourages us in this next year, if you were to do just that, avoid foolish and ignorant disputes. Some people get into disputes over, things, inches, right? Property disputes. You offended me. You offended me, so I'm going to take you to court. The silliest of disputes. Paul is telling us and encouraging us, and I'm specifically speaking now for this next year coming up, do what you can. Make every effort possible to avoid foolish and ignorant disputes. Notice what he says. Do not have anything to do with it. One of the places that I think is rife for this is the workplace. The workplace is a place, let's just face it now, the workplace is a place of gossip. It's a place where sides are chosen up. It's just right for these kinds of things. So if you don't do anything else this year, if you don't set any other goal for this next year, please set this as a goal. Avoid foolish and ignorant disputes. And then finally for this episode, number 3. So I should have said this at the beginning. I've got 6 all together. So this is number 3 for this week. Be willing to accept advice. Be willing to accept advice. I can't tell you the value of other people's advice. It's just an incredible thing to have. People that care about you, that want the very best for you. Seek their advice. Now, you have to be careful in that you seek godly advice. I mean, you ask 100 people, they'll tell you 100 different things that you could do, in giving you advice. Everybody's going to disagree. But if you seek out godly counsel, listen to what Paul says in Philippians chapter 4, verse 9. He says, the things that you have learned and received and heard and saw in me, do those things. And the God of peace will be with you. Notice how he connects listen to my advice. See, that's what he's saying. Listen to my advice. Heed my advice. What you have learned and received and heard and seen in me, do that. Okay, do that. Now, sometimes people give us advice that we don't like, right? we don't like. People can tell us, look, don't do that. I'd advise you not to do that because this. I can't tell you how many times that I've said those very words to people. Look, if you do that, here's the risk. Boom, 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 boom. And they disregard the advice. And bad things happen, okay? Bad things happen. Be willing to accept advice. Now, am I saying go out and ask 100 people what you should do? No. You're the final decider, if that's a word. You're the only person that can make the final decision, okay? Nobody can make that decision for you, right? But it's always good. In other writings in Proverbs, the Bible speaks about that it's good to seek advice, the wisdom of many. And sometimes you'll run into, you'll have people who care about you, who love you, who want the very best for you, and will give you advice that you don't like or maybe you don't even agree with, but it's good, solid advice. So before you discount it, before you ignore it, consider it deeply, consider it heavily, take time. Sometimes we get in a rush about, making decisions, right? We talk in terms of, what I call a knee-jerk reaction, right? Or, impulse buying, right? You do that, right? Paul tells us that we need to be willing to listen to and accept advice. Now, whether you accept, whether you do what somebody advises you to do, that's totally up to you, right? It's totally up to you. But at least seek their advice and accept their advice. Now, if somebody is giving you advice and the expectation is you're going to follow my advice, no, that's not being caring for you. That's not helping you along, right? And respecting your decision and your choice. So, as you begin to start this new year, seek the wisdom of God, avoid foolish and ignorant disputes, and then thirdly, be willing to accept advice. If you were to do, now we're going to talk about 3 more next week, but if you'll just do those 3, that's a tall order if you just do those 3, okay? Think about that, consider that. Maybe you're a person that makes New Year's resolutions. That's okay, that's fine. or whether you're a person that makes goals instead of resolutions, that's fine too. But you need to set out something. Somebody said, and I wish I knew who said this, somebody once said that if you aim at nothing, you'll hit it every time. If you aim at nothing, you will hit it every time. Okay? So think about that. Be willing to accept advice, avoid foolish and ignorant disputes, and seek the wisdom of God. Those are the first three. We'll pick up with the next three next week. I want to thank you for riding with me. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Life Lessons. I hope that you've enjoyed the ride, even though it's kind of grayish outside today. I hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll look forward to riding with you, and you ride with me next week. God bless you. Have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week.